What's up, boys and girls? Old Uncle Toot back with you once again for another weekly outlook on the S&P 500 and Bitcoin. Let's briefly take a look at the macro perspective and see where we stand. This is the macro count that I've been updating for you since mid-summer when we formed this low. It was at this point that I felt that a triple zigzag would contain the price action best going forward. And as we have in the past, in this downward correction, we had a scare at a potential bottom being in with a very extended C wave. However, that had been repeated from the previous corrective move to the upside in this downside correction. Fast forward to present time, when we formed this low in October on a 5-wave move, we've been expecting a 2B that would probably test the outside parallel or downtrend line at this level, and we have in fact went ahead and tested it and broken through on a wick and scared the low being in, just as we had in the two previous upside corrective moves. So since then, we have had a impulsive looking move to the downside, and it seems that we should be locked in for a macro perspective of these lows to this high confluence area before the bear market is over. But as always, the devil is in the details. So let's go ahead and zoom in and take a look. All right, down here on the hourly, let's briefly recap what Sensei Hove set us up for last week. He said that he was expecting a wave 4 being put into the upside that would then expect a 5th wave down to complete an impulse from the high. It was after that he expected us to put a 3-wave move in off the low to the high resistance area that we could potentially put in for a short. Now, fast forward to this week, we got exactly what he expected with the 5th wave down to complete an impulse off the high, and we have put in a 3-wave move that looks to be completing to the upside. It has broken the downside final channel of that impulsive move, so it is technically an adequate retracement. However, it is quite low, short, and has not met the high probability area for a retracement for a wave 2 or wave B, or met this resistance area. So I would not think that there was a good short setting up at this very instant for this sort of level, test these previous lows. So I think there are two different scenarios that we should be watching. Scenario 1 is that we are putting in a multiple zigzag to the upside, and that we have already put in the W, and we were likely starting the X, and we will finish in a Y to the high probability retracement area, as well as this resistance for a short position. The other alternative is potentially that we are putting in an impulsive wave, and that we are finishing our second 1-2. It would be a 1-2. Put these over here, and another 1-2, and we're working on the second 1-2. That would then do this, take it down, change the color. We would be potentially putting in a more bullish move off the low. But what would give us that perspective? Well, as I showed you a couple weeks ago, I had us finishing a zigzag to the upside at this level. Since then, we put in a 3-wave move to the downside and a 3-wave move to the upside. There's a few different ways you can reconcile this. However, I call this uncertainty. And if this is, in fact, a 3-wave move to the upside and not a triangle of some sort or some other move that this is a odd-looking impulse to the upside, if this is, in fact, a 3-wave move, we need to be on the lookout for the fact that we could be putting in or have put in a flat wave to the downside that has finished. So it'll be very important to see how this price action plays out before we go on to expect either the new lows or higher highs. So from the trading perspective, again, an X wave for the first scenario that I showed would break out of this channel. The 1-2-1-2 should remain within this small, potentially corrective channel to the upside. If this price action breaks out of this bottom side of the channel, we would not expect that a 1-2-1-2 is in play. And then, of course, we always have to be wary that the 2B could be in at this level and take us down for new lows now. But that's what we're going to be tracking this week and see how we can take advantage of it. The most important thing is going to be focusing at the trading degree on the low side and being aware of where we could stand at the larger degree. Okay, guys, before we get into Bitcoin, make sure you hit that like button if you like what you're seeing and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of these weekly outlooks as well as our midweek crypto and traditional asset videos. Okay, now onto the chart. So this is the macro perspective that I've been updating for you for well over a year on my Twitter and within the Discord. Okay, so we've been expecting an impulsive move to the downside that should resolve in a fifth wave with a C to end the Bitcoin correction. We're getting there, but we're not quite there. And as always, the devil's in the details because the subdivision of this price action is quite murky. There's a few different options. Let's go ahead and get into what I've been updating. Okay, as I said before, the price action at this level is quite uncertain, and I've been tracking 3 options for members that could potentially be playing out. The first option, and these are in no particular order, would be that we have finished a 3-wave move to the downside at this low level, and that would mean that we need to port this wave 4 over to this level, and that we are currently in a rally that should sustain until about the 25K level before we go on to new lows. And then, of course, once we reach this level, we could project for the all-time corrective low at that point. The next option, if you think that last one was bad, is that we are actually in an impulsive move to the downside, and this would be a 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, meaning we're going quite low. Of course, I won't even bother really projecting, but something along these lines. If not lower than that, this is not a real projection, but you can project out what an impulsive wave would mean. This would be, let's say, the scariest of the options. And then my favorite option that, again, we're going to have to see how this plays out, would be that this is potentially an ending diagonal of some sort, and that we will finish up on the 14K level that we've been tracking. And then, of course, you know what happens after an ending diagonal. Very strong moves to the upside. If you're a long-term Bitcoin bull, any of these counts will do because they do have all-time highs after they complete, but this should be your favorite. And it is, for my personal taste, I think it is slightly the odds-on favorite of the 3 options. But it could be any of them or none of them. These are just what I'm tracking. Let's get down to the trading degree. So what you see here is the labeling of the last chart that I shared with you on my previous weekly outlook 2 weeks ago. It has been unchanged since. At the time, I showed you that there was a quality potential setup for a long trade to the upside, which I took and hosted for the members. It went quite well. Since then, we have had a 5-wave impulse from the high, and then, of course, a motive wave off the low and a bunch of sideways. Where does this leave us? Well, we need to adjust slightly, and that this is either, instead of being a 1 or a C completed here, it would actually be a W or a 3 completed here. And I'll get into this in a second. And then this level would either be a C or a B completed at a lower degree than what I just showed here if it were a B. The C, however, would be the same degree. So we'll just go ahead and write in B or C. Okay. And what that means is that we've either, just like on the SP 500, put in a 3-wave down, a 3-wave up with a 5-wave down. So we have a potential for a finished flat. Put this in different color. We'll put it in green. Or we have finished a C wave here, and that this proposed 3-wave move and all of this labeling would have to be wrong, and that this would be some sort of sideways consolidation, and then we come up for a 5th of the C to finish the corrective move here. I think that what I would like to call it, instead of picking a side strongly, I will call this uncertainty. And at the trading degree, we would then have to look at the lower move off the low that is impulsive. And then this seems obviously corrective. So what we need to know is that the trading degree, we would still expect a C wave or a 3 wave to the upside. So we actually have a decent probability for a trade to the upside before we would have to decide whether we would like to short, cover our longs, or do nothing at that point and watch it ride. So if it were a finished flat, we would expect for this to put in a base channel wherever this B may finish. Potentially the low was put in here. It could come out here. We'll just draw it out here for now. That if we break to the upside of that channel, we would expect that we are more likely in a 3 than a C, and that we could watch it ride. Trader's choice for you. I will definitely be watching this in the Discord and updating the members accordingly. I hope to host at least one more trade with the price action that I just explained. Okay, guys, that about wraps it up. Let me go ahead and give you a small warning before we do finish up here. Last week was a holiday week. We're in another holiday week now. As you can see, we've had quite a bit of sideways price action on low volume. This can leave us in an environment that could lead to strong price swings in either direction on low volume, and it could be quite unpredictable. So just be careful and take that into account in your week's trading. Also, just like on the S&P 500, there's always the scenario that we could say that we didn't discuss here, where the correction to the upside could be in, and we could just fall off the face of the planet at any moment. So be careful for that as well. I do expect that we would, I wouldn't think that if the B would be finished here, honestly, I think that we would want to come down and test another low before continuing on to the upside. But I think that we do likely have another leg in this move before we continue to the downside. And of course, all of the scenarios we already talked about. So go ahead, throw a like on this video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any content, and leave a comment down below on what you would like to see for the Thursday traditional asset video that I plan to do this week. All right, boys. Toot out.